According to all known laws of speedrunning, there is no way Scooty should be able to run every game for the GameCube. His brain is too small to understand that many games. Scooty, of course, runs them all anyways, because Scooty doesn't care what humans think is impossible.
Today we're playing Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. If you don't know what the Sonic Adventure series is, the original two were released on the Dreamcast, and with the release of the GameCube, Sonic Adventure 2 was ported over to the GameCube with a few extra game modes and renamed as Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. This game, unlike many, has two unique story modes that you can play through, one being the hero story and the other being the dark story, and since they're two very distinct stories, there are two main speedruns for each. And today we're going to be doing the hero story, which you follow along as Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, who each have their own unique style. The game starts off on the city escape level with us falling out of the sky as Sonic, that starts off the level with us boarding down the streets. The main strategy for this section is to stay as straight as possible while also avoiding running into any obstacles, and after landing, the rest of the level is just us, well, escaping the city. For most of Sonic's levels, the quickest way to navigate through each level is to spin dash, which all we have to do is charge up our spin and then cancel the roll to dash out of it. In certain parts of this level, as well as throughout the entire game, there are many different areas to glitch through certain parts of the stages, but as this is my very first time playing the game, I just left the hardest glitches for the professionals. After navigating through the city, the final section of the level is running from the giant armored truck, in which, similar to before, spin dashing is the quickest way to finish off this section. And after successfully escaping the giant armored truck, we finish off the first level. Throughout the story mode and some of the missions, there are some boss stages where we have to fight a specific enemy, and the way to defeat this boss is to attack the main cabin on the top of the robot. And the game wants us to only be able to attack it while it's on the ground, but there are a few strategies that allow us to attack it while it's flying, such as using these wooden crates to kill the boss much quicker. The next stage is our first Knuckles stage, Wild Canyon, and in this stage, as well as all of Knuckles stages, our goal is to find 3 Chaos Emeralds as quickly as we can. When practicing the speedrun for this game, these levels are going to be the ones that can frustrate you the most, as the emeralds are randomly placed and can heavily affect your time if you don't have a ton of practice. The way that these levels work is that whenever you are close to an emerald that you're seeking, your HUD will blink green and then will blink yellow and eventually red based on how close you are. So if your radar begins to blink green, you know you're in the right area. The thing that makes this tricky for speedrunning is that there are a limited amount of locations that emeralds can be, so memorizing all the possible spots and then being able to navigate those in the correct way can be a bit challenging. The last thing that makes this challenging to do quickly is that Knuckles only searches for one emerald at a time. So at the beginning of the level, if emerald number 2 is close by, your radar will not go off because the radar is only tracking the first emerald. I slowly figured this out and finally found the last piece of Wild Canyon in just under 3 minutes. After Knuckles' mission, we have another boss fight, this time against EGGMAN while playing as Tails, and this fight is probably the easiest in the game as all we have to do is face EGGMAN straight on and fire at him until he dies, making the mission last about 10 seconds. The next mission is the first actual Tails mission, and in all of Tails' missions, we are in his little robot plane suit thing which we can fire missiles. In all of Tails' missions, in order to proceed through the next area, we have to first defeat all the enemies in each room. One other very important thing for Tails' missions is that the physics for the robot's suit are pretty weird, and the best way to keep momentum is to jump around corners instead of running around them, as Tails will slow down when turning, but if the turn is done in the air, he will not slow down at all. The mission is pretty straightforward and all we have to do is continue along defeating every enemy in our path and opening up the following doors. There are a couple areas to save a bit of time in this level, such as this elevator, where when jumping on the platform we can jump over this fence at the very front and kill all the enemies and open up the gate much quicker, but I fell off on my first try so decided to do the normal route. After continuing along and destroying all the enemies, we make our way to the end and finish off Prison Lane. The next mission is Metal Harbor, where we are running through an air base, making our way to the rocket at the end, and the main strategy for this level is to skip most of the loops whenever possible. This saves a ton of time because instead of looping all the way around, we can just jump to the base of the ramp and skip having to run through the whole thing. During this level, we unlock the light shoes, which will allow us to dash through lines of rings very quickly, which can save us time in the future, as well as reaching other areas that we couldn't previously, such as making it across this gap onto the airstrip. As for the rest of the level, we just have to navigate our way through and tumble underneath the walls before eventually making our way to the rocket. The rocket portion is a timed section where we have to make it to the top of the rocket before it takes off, and the main strategy to reach the rocket is just to make your way up the railing and grab onto the rocket before it launches. After launching off the rocket, we drop back down and board our way through this pipe, and eventually end off Metal Harbor. We then have another boss fight, this time it's against Shadow, who, just in case you were wondering, is the main character of the Dark storyline. The way to defeat Shadow is to use your dash attack to hit him, but the only way to hit him is from behind, because if you attack him head on, he will just mimic your attacks and negate everything that you do. The next mission is Green Forest, and we start off the level by spin dashing down the vine, and for this mission all we have to do is complete the level in less than 8 minutes before the forest explodes. Similar to all of other Sonic's missions, we don't have to worry about enemies, and our only goal is to get to the end as quickly as possible. No matter what time you get at the end of the level, the forest will begin to crumble and we have to jump along the falling pieces to get to the end of the level, and at the end of the falling ground we complete Green Forest. The next stage is Pumpkin Hill, and just like the first Knuckles mission, we're searching for 3 Chaos Emeralds, only this time the level is much larger and it's easier to die due to the floating islands. Since each section of the map is so confined, whenever the radar would go off, the emerald could be in multiple different locations, which makes knowing each spot that much more important. In this level, we also get the shovel claws, which allows us to dig into the walls as well as the ground to find emeralds, which means some of the emeralds will not be visible, which makes it harder to check to see if they are there from a distance. We eventually find the last emerald underneath the railroad tracks and finish off Pumpkin Hill. The next stage is Mission Street, which is another Tails mission where we have to navigate through the giant city and fly across the rooftops. In this mission, we unlock the booster, which allows us to hover over long gaps whenever we jump, and similar to before, the main strategy for this level is just to continue moving forward, as well as jumping around sharp corners to maintain Tails' momentum. But other than that, the Tails missions are pretty simple, as Tails can't really speed up or do any spin dashing type things like Sonic can. There's a major skip in this level where you can skip an entire section by hovering around the curved uphill ramp towards the end of the level, but the execution is pretty precise, and I figured it would just be quicker if I ran the level normally. The next level is Aquatic Mine, and I honestly have to say, I love this game as well as attempting the speedrun if there weren't any Knuckles levels. The amount of variability and memorization for these levels can be very frustrating, and even when you have them perfected, your run can be lost due to poor emerald locations. And of course I don't have all the locations memorized, so I'm really just complaining, but I think this is what would be stopping me from trying to get a lot better at this game. The main strategy for this level is to head to the top and to lower the water all the way to the bottom. No matter what emerald spawns are here, not having to deal with the water makes it much easier to navigate as well as move around much faster. The first emerald was just sitting out in the open along the second floor, the second emerald was in the back room next to all the skulls on the ground, and then the final emerald was in the wall in the middle of all these skulls. The next stage is the first and only racing stage where we play as Tails, and this mission is pretty straightforward. All we have to do is drive along the road, boosting whenever we can, and then reach each checkpoint before our timer runs out. The only major strategy for this level is to use our drift to speed ourselves up. Whenever we drift around a corner, our ship actually moves a tad bit quicker than just going straight, so by staying in a drift while driving in a straight line, we're able to go much quicker than just driving normally. The next level is Hidden Base, and this is another Tails mission where we have to navigate through the desert in order to find the hidden base at the end of the level. There are a couple of skips in this level where we can hover around some major parts as well as using some of the pulleys to jump to different platforms that we normally shouldn't be able to reach. The final section of the mission, we have to ascend the final tower by grabbing some pulleys and shooting down some platforms, and at the top of the tower we finish off the hidden base. The next Sonic level is Pyramid Cave, and the main mechanic in this level is the hourglasses. Whenever we hit an hourglass, a switch will open a door, and we have to reach the door to pass through before the hourglass flips back over. We also get an upgrade which allows us to bounce whenever we jump into the air, allowing us to jump much higher than we could before. The last thing specific to this level is that we have to use these weights to place them on the platforms in order to open up doors, which to start off is pretty easy, but can become increasingly more difficult when we have to carry the weight through a ton of enemies. Once figuring out the new mechanics, this level isn't too hard, and eventually we reach the end where all we have to do is run through a couple of loop-de-loops before eventually completing the Pyramid Cave. The next stage is another Knuckles stage, and the main characteristics of this level are that we're collecting keys as well as there being multiple different rooms that require us to flip certain hourglasses in order to access, as well as digging in specific walls that transport us to other sections of the level. Luckily for me, I stumbled across the second key while running through the level looking for the first one, and then found the first one in the main pool in the center of the level, and eventually found the last one in the room with the Chow Box. This leads us to the boss fight against King Boom Boo, and in this fight, King Boom Boo throws a flurry of attacks, but after the third throw, we can run all the way around to the platform, hitting the switch that opens up the light to the arena. Once the light enters the room, King Boom Boo will turn into a shadow and hide from the light, but by digging into the shadow, he will become exposed, allowing us to attack him. There is a way to attack him multiple times during each phase, but it is pretty tricky to pull off, and eventually after doing it enough times, we defeat King Boom Boo. After defeating King Boom Boo, we immediately head into the next fight against the Egg Golem. The main strategy for this fight is to dodge all of the Egg Golem's attacks, and once he is vulnerable, we want to jump on the platforms on his back and attack the top of his head. And after doing this a couple of times, we finish off the Egg Golem. We are now on the final mission for each character, and we start off as Tails in the Eternal Engine. In this mission, we work our way through a spaceship with the same game plan as the previous Tails missions defeat all the enemies we see in order to progress to the next area, and to keep moving forward as much as we can. This level isn't that difficult, but it can be frustrating. The main issues I had with this level was that there are so many different sections where we have to hover as well as jump off of these pulleys, and depending on the direction you as well as the camera is facing, you can completely miss your jump when leaving some of the pulleys. The last power up that we get for Tails is the bazooka that allows us to blow up any of the metal crates that are placed throughout the level. The final section of the level, we are strapped into a moving platform and have to destroy every part of the ship, causing it to open up so that we can complete the level. The final mission as Knuckles is Meteor Herd, and since all these levels are extremely similar, I won't bore you with the whole process, but this level is pretty similar to all the other stages, only this time we're in space. The first emerald was in this blue goo fella, the second emerald is in yet another blue goo fella, and the last emerald is underneath this bounce pad. After the final mission as Knuckles, we face off against the last boss stage as Knuckles, which is the final fight against Rogue, who is the equivalent of Knuckles in the Dark storyline. At the start of this fight, by digging straight down on top of Rogue, you're able to get a bunch of consecutive hits off, and if you're lucky you can defeat her before the floor opens up. I was able to get 3 hits off during this phase, but was not able to skip the next part in which the floor opens up and then Rogue will begin to fly away, in which we have to track her down and attack her before she uses her abilities that can end up damaging us. The next level is Crazy Gadget, which is the second to last main stage level for Sonic, and our main goal of this stage is to find out where Eggman is. This mission takes place on the same ship as the Tails mission, and the special thing about this level is that gravity can be changed by stepping on these platforms, causing us to flip gravity either upside or left and right. The last part of this level takes advantage of the gravity shift and creates a bit of a puzzle that we have to navigate through, where we're continuously hitting a bunch of switches causing gravity to flip back and forth, and eventually we make our way to the end and swap the gravity that allows us to fall to the end of the level. After completing Crazy Gadget, this takes us to the final boss fight for Tails, which is against Dr. Eggman. In this fight, similar to the first mission against Dr. Eggman, all we have to do is shoot at his ship in order to kill him, only this time he has a massive laser that can kill us pretty quickly. The main strategy is that he does not start attacking until we take the first shot, and then from there we just have to dodge the laser attacks just enough so that we don't die, and then finish him off with a few more final shots. And this takes us to the final stage mission for Sonic. This stage has to be the coolest level as well as the longest, and there are some pretty major skips on this level, with some being harder to pull off than others. The hardest skip to pull off, you are able to take a similar jump to the one I'm taking now, turn around backwards and take a very precise time and angle, turn back around towards the stage, and eventually fall on top of the end of the level. The skip I'm doing, however, does skip a large portion, but is very easy to pull off. All we do is jump off the ledge and land on the railing down at the bottom. Since I didn't do the full level skip the next portion of the level, all we have to do is a bunch more rail grinds before eventually running away from the exploding space station, similar to the city escape mission at the very beginning of the run. Now that we have completed all the missions, the final boss of the hero storyline is Sonic vs. Shadow on the final rush stage. The easiest strategy for this fight is to allow Shadow to gain some distance on us so that he does his special attack, and while he's doing that special attack, we can close the gap on him and just do a normal spin attack in order to damage him. And after doing that a couple more times, we defeat Shadow, which stops our time. And that's the speedrun for Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. There's still a ton to this game that I wasn't able to run, but the hero's story is the most popular as well as being the most known among people who used to play this game. Thanks for watching, and let me know what GameCube games you want to see next, as well as subscribing if you enjoyed seeing this game and want to see more.